Mrs. Adeyemi carried herself like a queen. She spoke only to those she considered important and ignored everyone else. Their only daughter, royalty. She never heard the word no. If she wanted something, she got it, even if it belonged to someone else. Staff in their mansion feared her sharp tongue. Friends knew she was quick to anger. Neighbors kept their distance because trouble followed her like a shadow. On the other side of the city lived Daniel Okoro, a young man whose life was the exact opposite. Daniel was 24, humble, and hardworking. His father had died years ago, leaving his mother, Mama Grace, to raise him and his younger sister, Ada, deliver a package to a customer. Vanessa was also there, dressed in a bright red designer dress, sitting with her friends under a large umbrella. Her laughter echoed across the park as she boasted about her latest shopping trip abroad. When Daniel walked past with his delivery bag, she noticed him. She didn't recognize his face and, out of pure boredom, decided to call him over. "Hey, you!" she shouted. Daniel paused, surprised. He pointed at himself. "Me?" "Yes, you. Come here." Daniel walked over, careful to stay respectful. "Good afternoon, Ma. How can I help you?" Vanessa tilted her smile on her face. "Do you know who I am?" Daniel gave a polite smile. "Everyone in this city knows the Adeyemi family." "Good day, Ma. Please, I am working." Her eyes narrowed. "Did I dismiss you? Are you trying to be rude?" Her friends laughed loudly. Daniel sighed quietly. He didn't want to apologize and excused himself, but Vanessa hated being ignored. As she watched him walk away, anger and pride boiled inside her. That evening, Vanessa returned home with a story. She ran into her office, tears in her eyes. "Daddy," she cried, "something terrible happened." Chief Adeyemi jumped up from his chair. "What is it? Who hurt you?" Vanessa sobbed dramatically. "That delivery boy in the park. He attacked me. I'm scared, Daddy. I didn't want to tell anyone, but—" Her father's face turned dark. "What? Which delivery boy?" "I don't know his name. I'll never forget his face," she said. Chief Adeyemi didn't ask for proof. He didn't ask questions. His daughter's word was enough. The next morning, Daniel's life changed forever. He was on his way to work when police officers stopped him on the street. "Are you Daniel Okoro?" one of them asked. "Yes, officer. Is there a problem?" "You are under arrest," the officer said firmly. Daniel's heart pounded. "Under arrest? For what?" "For the crime of rape," the officer replied coldly as they handcuffed him. Neighbors stared in shock. Some whispered. Others shook their heads in disbelief. His mother ran outside, panic in her eyes. "My son is innocent," she cried. "Please, there must be a mistake." But the police ignored her. At the station, Daniel tried to explain, but nobody listened. The Adeyemi name was too powerful. Days turned into weeks. No investigation was done, no evidence was presented. But the court date was fixed quickly. The day of the trial, Daniel stood in the courtroom wearing the same shirt he had been arrested in. His mother sat behind him, tears streaming down her face. His younger sister Ada clung to her arm, confused and scared. Vanessa sat across the room in an expensive black dress. Her parents sat beside her, their faces cold. The judge looked at Daniel with little interest. It was clear the decision had been made before the trial began. "Daniel Okoro," the judge said, "you have been found guilty of the crime of rape and are hereby sentenced to 15 years in prison." The sound of the gavel echoed in the room. Daniel's knees weakened. His mother wailed. Ada cried uncontrollably. "I am innocent," Daniel shouted as guards dragged him away. "I did nothing wrong. God sees my heart." But his words were swallowed by the heavy silence of the courtroom. That night, in a small, dark prison cell, Daniel sat alone. His dreams, his freedom, and his life had been stolen. He whispered into the darkness, "Lord, please, don't let my truth die." Little did he know, this was only the beginning of a story that would shake the city to its core. The prison gates closed behind Daniel with a loud metallic clang that echoed in his chest. The smell of sweat, rust, and damp walls filled his nose. He was led down a narrow hallway, passing cell after cell. Prisoners stared at him with cold or curious eyes. Some shouted rude words. Others just watched silently. The guard stopped in front of a cell and opened it. "In you go," he said roughly. Daniel stepped inside. The small room had 2 bunk beds, a broken table, and walls covered in scratch marks. 2 men were inside, both older than him. One of them, a tall man with gray hair, looked up. His eyes were sharp but kind. "New boy?" he asked. Daniel nodded quietly. "Yes, my name is Daniel." The man stretched out a hand. "Call me Baba T." Daniel shook his hand. Baba T had been in prison for many years. His calm voice and wise eyes made him different from the others. Days turned into weeks. Daniel quickly learned that prison life was not just about surviving the place, but also surviving the people inside. He kept to himself, avoiding trouble. He did small jobs for other inmates to earn favor, cleaning, washing, or helping in the kitchen. At night, he lay on his hard mattress, staring at the ceiling. His thoughts were always of his mother and sister. He worried about how they were coping without him. One afternoon, while working in the prison kitchen, Daniel spoke to Baba T. "Baba, why am I here? I didn't do what they said I did. God knows, I am innocent." Baba T sighed. "Prison is full of innocent men, Daniel, but life is not fair. That's why we must keep our hearts from turning bitter if you are truly innocent. Hold on to your truth. One day, it will speak for you." Daniel nodded, though his heart still felt heavy. Months passed. Daniel sent letters to the outside world, hoping someone would believe him, but no reply ever came. He realized that nobody wanted to challenge the Adeyemi family. Inside prison, time felt endless. Every day looked like the one before. Some nights, Daniel fell sick with fever. The prison clinic gave him basic medicine, but the cold nights and poor food made him weaker. Still, he held on to hope. One rainy evening, Daniel sat in his cell listening to the sound of water dripping from the ceiling. Baba T looked at him. "You're quiet tonight." Daniel smiled faintly. "I was just thinking, if I ever leave this place, I will spend the rest of my life helping people who are wrongly accused. I don't want anyone else to go through this pain." Baba T nodded. "That is a good heart, Daniel. Don't let this place change you." But the truth was, prison was slowly changing Daniel. His body grew thinner. His eyes lost their brightness. 2 years later, his health took a bad turn. His cough became worse. His strength faded. The prison doctor examined him and shook his head. "He needs better care, but we can't afford to send him out." Daniel lay in bed, breathing weakly. Baba T sat beside him, holding his hand. "Daniel," Baba T said softly, "hold on." His lips whispered one last prayer. "God, let the truth be known." And then silence. Baba T sat quietly, tears in his eyes. He whispered, "Rest well, my son. Your story is not over." Far away, in the Adeyemi mansion, the wind howled against the windows. A strange feeling crept into the house. Vanessa shivered for no reason she could explain. It was the first sign that the cry of the innocent had been heard. The night Daniel died, something changed in the city of Linton. It began quietly. A strange wind swept through the streets. People in the neighborhood of the Adeyemi mansion spoke of hearing faint cries at night, cries that sounded like pain and sorrow. In the Adeyemi mansion, Vanessa tossed and turned in her sleep. She dreamt of a young man standing in the rain, his eyes sad but steady. "Why are you here?" she asked in the dream. The young man didn't answer. He only whispered, "Truth does not die." Vanessa woke up with a start, her heart pounding. She told herself it was just a nightmare, but it was only the beginning. The first sign of the family's trouble came with business. Chief Adeyemi's biggest investment, a luxury hotel chain, suffered a sudden fire in one of its main branches. The insurance company refused to cover the damages, claiming fraud. Soon after, another company, under his name, faced a huge scandal. Stocks dropped overnight. Chief Adeyemi sat in his office, sweating as he read the reports. "How is this possible?" he asked his secretary. She avoided his eyes. "Sir, people are saying maybe it's spiritual." "Spiritual?" Chief Adeyemi scoffed. "Nonsense. These are just bad business moments. We will recover." But they didn't recover. At home, Mrs. Adeyemi noticed strange things. At night, doors creaked open by themselves. The sound of footsteps echoed in empty hallways. Sometimes she heard faint knocking on her bedroom door, only to open it and find nobody there. One night, while walking to the kitchen for water, she saw something that froze her blood. In the dim hallway, a man stood at the far end. His clothes were ragged, his head slightly bowed. "Who's there?" she shouted. The man slowly looked up. His face was familiar, a face she had seen in court years ago. It was Daniel. Mrs. Adeyemi screamed. When she told Chief Adeyemi, he dismissed it as stress. But fear had already begun to take root in the house. Vanessa's nightmares grew worse. Every night she saw Daniel in her dreams. Sometimes he said nothing. Sometimes he asked the same question. "Why did you lie?" She started losing weight. Her friends stopped visiting because she looked pale and restless. One evening, while sitting alone in her room, she heard a whisper. "Vanessa." She turned sharply, but the room was empty. The whisper came again, closer this time. "Vanessa." She screamed and ran to her parents' room, shaking. "It's him! It's Daniel!" Her father shouted. "Stop this madness! There is no ghost!" But even he couldn't explain the shadows he sometimes saw moving along the walls. As weeks passed, their businesses collapsed one after the other. Bank accounts were frozen. Investors pulled out. The media began reporting the Adeyemi downfall as the biggest scandal of the year. Looked down on refused to help them. Former friends avoided their calls. One by one, their properties were sold to pay debts. Eventually, the family's mansion was seized. The Adeyemis, once the most powerful family in Linton, found themselves homeless. They rented a small old house at the edge of the city. Life became hard. Chief Adeyemi, who once controlled millions, now struggled to buy food. Vanessa barely spoke. She sat in her room, haunted by guilt and fear. One stormy night, she heard the familiar voice again. "Vanessa." She turned, and there he was. Daniel standing at the foot of her bed. Tears filled her eyes. "Please, please, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for you to die." Daniel's voice was calm. The truth must be known. And then he vanished. Vanessa fell to the floor, sobbing. She knew what she had to do. The storm raged outside as Vanessa sat on the floor, trembling. Her mind replayed the image of Daniel's face again and again. She could no longer pretend it was her imagination. The guilt that she had buried for years was now too heavy to carry. "I made up the story because he ignored me that day in the park." The room fell silent. Chief Adeyemi stared at his daughter, his mouth slightly open. "Vanessa, do you understand what you are saying?" Tears rolled down her cheeks. "I killed him, Daddy. My lie put him in prison, and now he's dead." Mrs. Adeyemi gasped and covered her mouth. Chief Adeyemi's pride cracked for the first time. He buried his face in his hands. "All this time, all this suffering, we brought it on ourselves." Vanessa nodded. "He comes to me in my dreams. He wants the truth to be known. I can't sleep until I confess." The next day, the family went to the police station. The officers were shocked to see the Adeyemis in their worn clothes, looking nothing like the powerful family they once were. Vanessa told her story in full. She admitted her lie. The news spread across the city like wildfire. People were outraged. Some cursed the Adeyemis for destroying an innocent man's life. Others saw it as justice finally catching up with them. Daniel's mother, Mama Grace, was called to the station. She came, her face lined with years of pain. When she heard Vanessa's confession, she broke down in tears. "My son, he died in prison. He cried for justice, and now the truth comes too late." Vanessa knelt before her. "I am so sorry, Ma. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just needed to tell the truth." Mama Grace looked at her for a long moment. "Child, forgiveness is God's work, but you will live with the weight of your actions. May God have mercy on you." That night, in their small house, the Adeyemas sat together in silence. For the first time in years, the air felt different. There was still pain, still shame, but the heavy presence in the room was gone. Vanessa slept without nightmares for the first time. Chief and Mrs. Adeyemi, though still broken, felt a strange sense of peace. Far away, in the unseen world, Daniel's spirit stood quietly. His face was calm. His truth had been heard. He whispered, "Justice is not revenge. Let them learn." And with that, he faded into the light. Months later, the Adeyemis began rebuilding their lives. They no longer lived in luxury. They no longer looked down on others. They learned humility the hard way. Vanessa began volunteering at a community center, speaking to young people about the dangers of lies and abuse of power. Chief Adeyemi started a foundation to support wrongly accused prisoners. Their lives were never the same, but they lived with a new understanding. The cry of the innocent never goes unheard. Power is a gift, not a weapon. Use it to protect, not to destroy. For the cry of the innocent will always find its way to the truth.
They warned me about love at first sight. Nobody told me it could happen. With a go. It was a sunny Saturday morning at Mile 12 Market. I wasn't even supposed to be there. My mum had begged me to help her buy ripe plantains before heading to the mechanic. I was already fuming. Pushing through the crowd, she stood by a wooden table, surrounded by bunches of plantain. Brown skin, soft eyes, and the kind of smile that could calm a riot. Her name tag read, Flora. She handed plantain. To a customer with such grace, you'd think she was raised in a palace, not a chaotic Lagos market. And that was it. I came back the next day, and the next, pretending to forget things: onions, pepper, even toothbrush, anything to see her again. But Flora wasn't easy. She turned me down 5 times, politely, calmly, almost like she'd seen it all before. "You're not ready," she once said. "Your heart is still noisy." What did that even mean? I didn't care. I persisted. I brought her snacks, helped her sell, even shielded her from market touts. And slowly, something shifted. One day she asked, "Why do you keep coming back?" And I told her the truth. "Because you make this place feel like peace." That was the day she agreed to go on a walk with me. We didn't call it a date, but it felt like one. She told me she lived with her aunt in Alapere, loved folk music, and was scared of thunder. She never had a phone, said it was a distraction. I found it odd, but charming, like everything about her. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. We weren't perfect, but we were something. But that's when the dreams started. It began as whispers. Whispers in my room at night. Soft, chilling voices calling my name. My lights would flicker. My fan would turn off on its own. I'd wake up drenched in sweat with mud on my feet, even though I hadn't left my bed. One night, I dreamed of Flora standing by the lagoon, barefoot, her eyes hollow. "Why did you come for me?" she asked. I woke up screaming. I tried to ignore it, falling too hard, thinking things got worse. My neighbor, Mama Tilly Speaks, pulled me aside one morning. "That girl you walk with," she said slowly. "Where did you meet her?" "In the market," I replied. Her face went pale. "Which market?" "Mile 12. She just shook her head and whispered, "Ah, she's back again." That same day I returned to the market. Flora's plantain table was there, full, fresh, untouched. But Flora wasn't. I asked around. No one had seen her. Some traders even swore they never saw anyone at that stall. One man said, "Bros, nobody they sell for there since that girl died last year." I froze. "What girl?" He looked at me strangely. "One girl like that, quiet, always selling alone. Dem say she fall for inside canal one night during rain. Her body no even complete when dem find am." My stomach dropped. "No," I whispered. "That's not possible." I showed him a drawing I had done of Flora. My art pad always had her face. The man blinked. "Nah, she be this." Since then, my life hasn't been the same. Every time I try to forget, she appears again in my dreams, in the corner of my room mirror, even in reflections of passing buses. She's always looking at me. Sometimes she smiles. Sometimes she cries blood. And the scariest part? I still love her. I stopped going to Mile 12. I deleted the sketches, burned the gifts, threw out the leftover plantains in my kitchen. But the dreams didn't stop. In one dream, I found myself standing in a dim, abandoned house, rotting wood, broken windows, the air thick with mildew and the smell of something dead. A single candle burned on the floor, and next to it, her scarf. The yellow one she always wore in the market. That same scarf showed up in my laundry basket the next morning. I live alone. I tried to pray. I tried to fast. I even booked a hotel for a few days, hoping distance would help. But the second night in that hotel, the receptionist called my room and said, "Sir, your wife says she forgot her earrings. Can she come up now?" "I don't have a wife," I replied. There was silence on the line. "She's already by the door." I froze. I didn't open it. I sat on the floor and prayed till morning. When I got home, my neighbor, Mama Titi, was waiting outside. She handed me a red Bible, thick with dust and tied with a black thread. "She won't leave you," she said, "because you touched her heart when it was already buried." I begged her to explain. She sighed and led me into her home, small, quiet, smelling of palm oil and old incense. She pulled out a folder of old newspaper cuttings. One headline read, "Market girl drowns in storm body recovered days later." Another, "Locals blame river spirits for mysterious deaths in Alapir Canal." The photo was blurry, water damaged, but the smile was unmistakable. Flora. "Flora didn't just die," Mama Titi said. "She was never meant to stay dead. She's Adenkem, one of those who can return if their soul still holds unfinished love." I thought she was crazy until she showed me the last cutting and obituary page. Date of death, 9 months ago. Date of burial, 3 months ago. Place, Alapere. The same month Flora started talking to me. "Did you ever meet her aunt?" Mama Titi asked. "No," I replied. She always said her aunt was sick, that I shouldn't visit. She doesn't have an aunt, Mama Titi said softly. That house in Alapere? It's been abandoned for over a year. I didn't believe her. But that night, I went to Alapere. I had to see for myself. It was around 7:43 p.m. The road was wet. The wind carried a cold, salty smell, like the sea was watching. Exactly how I'd seen it in the dream. Wooden, worn down with faded blue paint peeling off the walls. But what truly chilled me was this: her yellow scarf, hanging on the gate, tied in a knot, like it was waiting for me. I pushed the gate open. It screamed like a warning. Inside, the air was heavier than anything I'd ever breathed. There were no signs of life, no dishes, no curtains, no furniture, just a single stool in the middle of the sitting room, and a picture frame leaning against the wall. I picked it up. It was me and Flora, at the market, but we had never taken a picture. Suddenly I heard it, her voice, soft, echoing. You came. My heart nearly stopped. I turned. She was standing at the top of the staircase, barefoot, dressed in white, her hair like she had just come out of water. I knew you'd come, she said again, because you promised. My lips wouldn't. Move. Do you still love me, she asked. Opened, but no words came because her eyes were bleeding. I wanted to run, but my legs refused. She was standing at the top of the stairs, pale, glowing softly like moonlight on water. Hair dripped, leaving a dark trail of dusty stain. Her white gown clung to her, soaked, as if she had just climbed out of a river. Do you still love me? Her voice didn't echo any clearer now. One shaky step backward, floor beneath me collapsed, tilted her head gently, like the old. Then something changed. Her smile trembled, her lips split, poured out. Not from her mouth, from her eyes, from her ears, even from her fingertips. I gasped. What are you? She stepped down the stairs, each foot making no sound. You said you'd never, she whispered. Yet I was the only one. The lights in the house flickered. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I grabbed it like a weapon. A missed call from unknown. Then a message popped up on the screen. If you leave, she will follow. If you stay, you belong to her. I dropped the phone. Flora was now standing just a few feet from me and looked cracked like old porcelain with water dripping from the seams. Her weren't eyes anymore. They were two dark pits, swirling with tiny screams I could almost hear. I loved you, she said. I still do. That's why I was shaking, sweating, crying. You're not real, I muttered. She leaned forward. I'm not the... 2 nights slept, slowly open, up, eyes missing, smiling, entered and said, alone. There were shadows, spirits with hue, some with no... watching to present. I never wanted to hurt, she said, but they won't let me go. One with me. My cold. I realized something then. It was never about love. It was a trade. She didn't just come back to see me. She came back to replace herself. That's when I said, tied to her wrist, leading all the way into the floor. What is that? I asked. She looked down, smiled sadly. It's the promise, the blood oath. Subtles began to... Voices, dozens, hundreds, crying, chanting in a language I couldn't understand. Flora stepped forward, her feet no longer touching the floor. "You said your heart was mine," she said. "And now it is." The candle in the corner of the room goes out by itself. Darkness swallows everything. A single whisper cuts through the silence. "Stay." I don't remember how I got out of that house. 1 minute, the room was dark, filled. The next, I woke up on the ground beside the canal, soaked to the bone, with mud on my shirt and a dead rat floating inches from my face. My phone was gone. My wallet too, but tied around my wrist was the same red thread. I yanked it off and threw it into the canal. That night, I didn't go home. I went to a church I barely knew, a rundown building beside a mechanic shop. The pastor didn't ask questions. He just looked at me and said, "You've crossed paths with the ones that whisper from under the river." He asked me to describe her. When I said her name, Flora, the old man dropped the Bible in his hand. "You said Flora?" "Yes." "From mile 12? "Yes." He rubbed his face slowly. "I buried her, with my own hands, 9 months ago. Her aunt begged me to bless the body, even though the corpse wasn't whole." I blinked. "But she's not buried. She's with me." "No," he said firmly. "She's not." The day of Flora's burial, her coffin was closed. Her body waterlogged, missing fingers. During the final rites, thunder struck and the coffin cracked open for a second. People where they saw a blink. The coffin was resealed. Quickly, the pastor led me into a small room. There were photos on the wall, old ones of smiling women with plantain baskets on their heads. All of them looked eerily like Flora. Spirit has worn many names, but the market is... I stepped back. "Feeds? She doesn't eat flesh. She eats hope, love, promise. Men like you are her favorite." The room started to spin. He handed me a white chalk and a bottle of thick oil. "When she returns, don't run. Mark your door. Keep your back to the mirror. And whatever you do, don't answer her if she knocks." At my apartment, 307. The night was silent. Too silent. I had placed chalk lines around every entrance. My Bible was open to Psalm 91. My hands trembled as I poured the oil in a circle around my bed. Then came the first knock. Knock, knock, knock. Soft, delicate, like hers. I froze, eyes wide open. I didn't move. Then a whisper came from the keyhole. "You forgot my plantains." I almost screamed. Another knock, louder. Then another. Then laughter. It wasn't hers anymore. It was deep, broken, wet. Then the door unlocked itself. The door had unlocked itself. I didn't touch it. I didn't move. I just stared. The knob turned slowly, creaking, almost like a neck twisting in the dark. But the door didn't open. Instead, I heard footsteps. Not outside. Behind me. I turned, slowly, and what I saw next shattered everything I thought was real. It was my mirror. But the reflection was wrong. In the mirror, room was still. But I wasn't in it. Flora was. She stood exactly where I stood in my shirt space, but she was smiling, calm. Her eyes were whole again. Her dress wasn't wet. She lifted her hand. So did I, but I wasn't controlling it. The mirror was. And then She spoke, not with her mouth, but from inside the glass. This was never about love, baby. It was about returning home. And now, you're the door. The lights flickered. Then everything flipped. I was in. The air was thick but tasteless. The colors were faded. And out, the world was frozen, had stopped. I tried, came out. Then others, men, some familiar, all of them staring the other side. Trapped. Florus of me now like she was underwater, her arms open. You made a promise. I remember it was we were dating. She had asked, "You die for me?" Had laughed and said, "Of course." Now she was collecting. Back in the real world, my body stood still, eyes blank. Flora's spirit wore me like a jacket, smiling with my face, blinking with my eyes. She stepped over the chalk line like it didn't exist, picked up my Bible, closed it, then whispered to the air, "Your heart is mine now." In the mirror dimension, I look out from behind the glass, banging, shouting, unseen. On the other side, I, no longer me, is preparing plantains on the kitchen counter, humming the same tune Flora used to hum in the market. But the face in the mirror, it's cracking, and behind me, other trapped souls begin to gather. One of them turns and whispers, "Don't worry, we all loved her too." The mirror was bleeding. A narrow crack of light opened before me, a final chance to escape the mirror world. But the voices around me were screaming louder now. The trapped souls clawed at the walls. And behind me, Flora stood quietly, watching. Not angry, not violent, just heartbroken. "Leave if you must," she whispered. "But remember, love makes a promise, and promises demand blood." I looked back one last time. I saw her for who she really was. A girl who had a soul twisted by loneliness. A spirit who didn't want revenge, she wanted to be remembered. But I couldn't stay, because if I did, my mother would take my place, and she had nothing to do with any of this. I ran. I ran toward the mirror with everything inside me. The moment I touched the crack, I felt something tear, like my soul was splitting from itself. I screamed as I passed through the bleeding frame, and then the church 3:07 AMI land dark, lit only by candlelight. The pastor and Mama Titi stood over me, both praying loudly, pouring oil on my chest, shouting scriptures. I couldn't speak. My eyes were open, but I saw nothing. My mouth moved, but the voice that came out wasn't mine. He made a promise. She holds it still. My body convulsed. Blood poured from my nose. The pastor slammed a hand on my forehead and shouted, "Every spirit holding this boy, I break. Your covenant!" Suddenly my mouth opened and I let out a sound that wasn't human. A shriek, a wail, something that shook the entire church. The candles blew out, and then silence. 3 days later, I woke up in a white room, weak, dizzy, free. Mama Titi sat by the bed, holding my hand. "She's gone," she whispered, but not without a fight. 1 month later, deliverance retreat. I spent 14 days on a mountain, praying, fasting, vomiting out black threads, seeing visions of Flora every time I closed my eyes. But by the end, the thread around my wrist turned to ash, and I knew the bond was finally broken. Now I avoid mirrors at night. I no longer visit mile 12. Sometimes I see plantain, sellers, and feel my heart twist, but I walk away. Not because I don't love, but because love without discernment can open doors no man should walk through. Flora was real. Her story was tragic. But some souls aren't meant to stay. And I've learned, not every woman who smiles at you in the market is alive.
It was supposed to be just a vigil. Nothing special, just one of those night prayers they hold when the month is about to end. The kind your neighbor invites you to because God fit talk your matter tonight. But Nepa had taken it, and my rechargeable lamp had died since morning. No TV, no me. You. he said, voice loud like thunder. "The Lord said you carry secret sin." Everybody turned, even the woman where they cry before paused to look. I almost laugh. "Me? Secret sin? Bro, I no even get data this month, the sin be that?" But something about the way his eyes glowed made my stomach twist. They started the vigil with the chain-breaking prayer, 3 hours, no sitting. Just shout your past sins until you start crying. One guy confessed to stealing meat from pot in 1998. Another woman cried about how she lied to her landlord about school fees. When it reached my turn, I laughed it off and said, "I know to sin like una." The pastor smiled, but it wasn't a good smile. "You dey lie," he whispered, "and the walls know." After the final worship, I looked around for the exit. I was tired, hungry, and low-key, ready to go back to my boring, hot room. That's when I noticed something. There was only one door, the same one I came through, but it wasn't there anymore. Instead, there was a different door, wooden, narrow, and carved with symbols I no understand. The usher appeared beside me. "That's your way out," he said. "You're clean now." I stepped forward and opened it and stepped into my room, my exact room. Same fan, same bedsheet, same jollof stain on the curtain. But something felt off. There was no sound. Outside, no generator hum, no dogs barking, no Mama Ifeoma shouting at her children next door. Just silence. I turned around. The door was gone, and in its place, written on my wall with what looked like charcoal, was one sentence. "Confess what you refuse to say, or start again." And then the light blinked. The bulb in my room flickered twice, and I heard singing. That same choir from the vigil. But I was in my room. I checked my wall clock. It was 6:42 p.m., the exact time Mama and Kechi had knocked. Then I heard the knock again. "You ready for the vigil?" Avoid red ink. Ifeanyi C. Oathbreaker. My chest tightened. Oathbreaker? Me? When? And that's when I heard my voice. But from the altar. I turned. There I was again, but this time in full white. Face blank. Eyes glowing. I spoke, but not with my mouth. The altar version of me raised his hand, and a loud voice echoed, "You vowed." Under breath, with tears, and still you broke it. Suddenly I remembered age 17, after my mother was sick. I'd prayed and cried and shouted into the night, "God, if you heal her, I swear I go serve you forever. No lies, no games, just you." And he did, but I didn't. The moment she got better, I ghosted church, started clubbing, ran small Yahoo format, told myself it was just survival. That night, I forgot the vow, but the ark didn't. The altar version of me said. That's why the door no go open. Then the walls started moving, not falling, not shaking, just shifting. The benches arranged themselves into a circle around me. In the air, faces began to appear. Some I knew, some I didn't. All of them looked disappointed. All of them whispered, "Say the truth. Own it. Finish what you say the truth. Own it. Finish what you started." Then the Bible turned into a bowl of water. The voice returned, "Drinks or repeat the loop again." I reached for the bowl. My hands were shaking like NEPA voltage. The water inside wasn't clear. It showed flashes, visions, memories I buried. That girl I lied to just to sleep with her. The fake CV I used to collect someone's internship. The money I found and never returned. The cousin I mocked behind his back but smiled to his face. I couldn't breathe. "I'm sorry," I whispered. Everything went black. Then I opened my eyes, back in my room again, normal room, fan working. Light bulb steady. My phone on my table. Buzzing, 6:43 p.m. 1 minute later, I picked the phone, a text message. From an unknown number. "Well done. Confession received, but one sin remains. The one you committed in your dreams." My phone powered, off, and the door creaked open on its own. Outside was not my compound anymore. It was the church again, but this time, it was upside down. I stood at the door of my room, staring into the upside-down church. Yes, upside down. The pews were hanging from the ceiling like bats. The pulpit was above my head. Candles stood straight, but their flames pointed down, yet somehow, it didn't fall. Gravity didn't care anymore. And neither did I. I took one step forward and my leg rose. Omo, no joke, I was walking up. Like saying a spiritual moonwalk. My body was doing backflip I didn't sign up for. By the time I reached the altar, which was now above my head, everything went still. Then came the voice. That same soft whisper that always sounded like it was beside me, even when no one was. There. Your sin in sleep is the one you fear in waking. Suddenly, the floor beneath my feet turned into glass. I looked down and saw myself, sleeping on my bed, peacefully. Then, the scene started playing like a movie, me tossing and turning. Then I sat up, eyes wide open but still asleep. I stood, walked to my drawer, pulled something out, a piece of paper. Then I opened my wardrobe and... Omo. I froze. There was a journal. One I didn't recognize, hidden between my old school clothes. Watched sleeping me open it and flip to the last page. Operation Burn Everything Plan if caught. It was in my handwriting, but I didn't remember writing that. Then I saw the worst part, a name list. People I hated, people I envied, even my own cousin, and next to each name was a word, erased. My heart pounded. No, I never planned this, I never... But the dream version of me kept going. He folded the paper, lit a match, burnt it, then climbed back into bed, smiling. Back in the upside-down church, thunder cracked. Lightning flashed across the walls. The voice returned. You think because you didn't remember, you didn't act. You think sins of the mind don't leave fingerprints? You entered with secrets, you'll leave with scars, or not at all. Suddenly the candles turned black. Not off just black flames. And every flame whispered something I had thought before but never said aloud. I wish he failed. She doesn't deserve that promotion. I'm better than all of them. God, no, go judge me. I'm trying now. Just this one time, na survival. The flames grew louder, echoing those words like chant. My ears rang, I covered my face, and then silence. When I opened my eyes, the church was gone. I was sitting in a chair, a real one this time. Opposite me, on another chair, was a small boy. About 10, barefoot, dusty face. But his eyes were too old for his body. He handed me a mirror. This is who you are when no one is watching. I looked and screamed, because the person in the mirror wasn't me, it was the pastor from the vigil. Red eyes, white robe, tired face. But this time, the reflection spoke. You've been judging others while running from your own judgment. The boy stood up and pointed to a door behind him. My last chance. I could feel it in my bones. If you go through that one, you can wake up, he said. But whatever you leave behind stays behind. Forever. I looked at the door, then back, in the mirror, and the pastor in the reflection winked. I no go lie. My legs no dey stable again. The moment that small, barefoot boy pointed at the door, my heart started to misbehave like generator with bad fuel. The mirror in my hand? Still dey show that pastor. But now, he was smiling wider, in bleeding from the eyes. You dey close, the boy whispered, but everything you take through that door will haunt you. Unless you pay the price. I turned to him slowly. Which price? He shrugged like saying a pure water matter. Memory, regret, or someone you love. Omo. This was no longer confession. This was transaction. I walked toward the door. It wasn't special. Just plain wood. No design. No lock. But the moment I touched it, everything changed. The candles went off. The chair disappeared. And that small boy. He started growing. I kid you not. In front of my eyes, the boy began to stretch, his arms, his legs, his neck. He grew taller, older, darker, until he was towering over me, face hidden in shadow. When he spoke again, his voice was no longer a whisper. Confession earns entry. Sacrifice opens the door. Then he stepped back into the dark and vanished. I turned the handle. The door opened with a sound like thunder rolling through metal. And what I saw inside, Omo na room. My room. Again, but this time everything was reversed. The bed was on the ceiling, my clothes folded backward, my wall clock moving anti-clockwise. The calendar! Now still today's date, but 2014. I stepped inside. Boom. I was wearing my old school uniform. Stained. White shirt. Loose khaki trousers. My phone rang. I looked down. BlackBerry Curve 3. That same one-way ID used to borrow airtime like oxygen. I picked. The voice on the other end was mine. This is your last chance. If you fix what you did in 2014, you'll wake up clean. If not, the Ark will claim your memory forever. I dropped the phone, and the room began to melt. Yes, melt. Walls dripping like hot wax. Floor turning to water. Bed slowly burning, but in reverse. The flames were freezing everything. Then I heard footsteps outside my window. Knock, knock. Bros, you day ready for vigil? It was Mama Nkechi's voice. Again. It's 42 p.m. Again. The end. Loop was closing in. Grabbed the handle and screamed, I confess everything. I lied, I stole, I hurt people and never looked back. I judged, I forgot God even after he helped me. Suddenly everything stopped. Silence. I was standing in a white room, completely empty. No candles, no clock, just one mirror on the wall. I walked up to it, and for the first time, I saw myself. Just me. Tired. Wounded. But real. Then, behind me, a door creaked open. I turned. Bright light. Voices singing softly. I took a step forward, and as I crossed the threshold, the moment I stepped through that final door, the light swallowed me like floodlight on blackout night. I squeezed my eyes shut, and when I opened them, I was back in church. But not the Holy Revival Ark. This one was different. The air smelled clean. There were no sweat-stained benches, no screaming ushers, no red-eyed pastor. Just soft organ music in the background, and sunlight pouring through stained glass windows like peace in liquid form. A woman in all white walked up to me. Her face was gentle, familiar, too familiar. Mummy? Yes, it was my mother, but younger, healthier. Smiling like she did before the hospital visits took it all, she touched my face. You've gone far, Ifeanyi, but you haven't come back yet. I tried to hug her. She stepped back. Not until you meet the one who sent you. A door opened at the front of this one. Darkness did. Cold. Deep. This one. Darkness did. Cold. Deep. Complete. Something moved inside. Something breathing. Something waiting. My mother pointed. Go! I swallowed hard. Who's inside? She looked at me and said just one word. You. I stepped into the dark, and the door closed behind me. No light, no sound, just presence. Then a match struck. One small bench, and sitting on that bench was me. But not scared me. This was cold me. No emotions, no regrets, just calm. Like somebody we no get anything to lose again. He smiled. Finally, he said, You're here, I stared. Here where? The place you built, he said. Every secret you buried, every truth you twisted, every prayer you faked, every person you used, all of them built this place. I'm not your shadow. I'm not your sin. I'm your realest self. I backed away. No, your sin. I'm your realest self. I backed away. No, I've confessed. I've cried. I passed through fire, through loop. I'm clean. He stood up. Clean, and doesn't mean whole. You think confession is enough? But you never asked for forgiveness. Not from them. Then he raised his hand, and around us, floating in the darkness, appeared all the people hurt. Amaka, girl I ghosted after. Give me these two. He shrugged, calm as ever. Because deep down, you still want to cut corners. Confess but not change. Feel bad but not face pain. You still want escape, not transformation. The cutlass felt heavy now, not because of weight, but because it felt like the easier option, Omo. I was tired of loops, tired of confessions, tired of 42 p.m. So I dropped the cutlass and clutched the Bible. Cold me frowned. Eyes narrowed, like he was disappointed. You sure? I nodded. My hands are dirty, I said, but I won't fix that by adding more blood. Then something happened. The ground beneath him began to shake. Cracks formed. He stumbled back. "Wait!" he shouted. "You can't just—" But I didn't wait. I opened the Bible and began to speak. Not shout. Speak, like someone finally tired of faking. I'm not proud. I've been fake. I've been selfish. I've caused pain. I've worn church clothes with street heart. But I want peace. For real this time. And with every word I spoke, he began to burn. No flames. Just light. Pure, blinding, painful light. He screamed. Twisted. Tried to run. But the light caught up with him. Until there was nothing left. Silence. Just me. Just peace. I opened my eyes. And this time, I was back in my room. Real room. Fan turning. Power on. Phone on my table. I checked the time. 5:56 p.m. Nipa had brought light. My Bible was still on the bed. And from outside, I could hear Mama Nkechi's voice. But this time, not calling me for vigil. She was laughing. Normal laughter. Joyful. I walked to the mirror. It was just a mirror. No reflection tricks, no whispers, no cracked writing, just me. Alive, breathing. Lighter. And on my door, someone had written with chalk, "You made it. Stay clean, or we loop again." I smiled, and for the first time in years I prayed, not for blessings, but for strength. When I saw both of them, I was enjoying life. Small chops at a wedding. Sweet, messy, and scattered. A girlfriend on the island. Bisola. Clean accent. Smooth skin. The type that says, "Let's do avocado toast," like she knows what avocado. Then there was my mainland babe, Cynthia. Pepper soup seller by day, slay queen by night, loud, loyal. The kind of woman that said, "On me, I go scatter your destiny." So of course I lied to both of them. To Bisola, I'm always working late. To Cynthia, "Island girls no fit understand me, now you be my peace, na so I dey balance sin with sweet mouth until that cursed Thursday." That morning I got 2 texts. Bisola, "Baby, make sure you're home by 7 p.m. today. I have a surprise for you. You'll love it." I smiled like a thief who just saw free meat until I saw Cynthia's message. "Call 7 p.m. sharp. Day your house. I won't spoil you today." 2 women, same time, same house. In that moment, I knew I was the not greatest of all time. But the one about to be used for emotional sacrifice. I started sweating like Nepopole during thunderstorm. I tried to lie my way out. I told both of them I was sick. Bisola replied, "Even better. I'll bring soup and medicine." Cynthia said, "Perfect. I'll bring pepper soup and bitters." That's when I knew. Now there he go happen.